For more on this story, we can bring in Panos Mumpsis, Assistant Secretary General and UN Regional Coordinator for the Syria crisis, who joins us from Amman, Jordan. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on France 24. Now, US officials believe the final ISIS enclaves can be cleared in the coming days. Just how dire is the situation on the ground?
The situation is quite dramatic. We have, since December, we have got more than 45,000 people who fled the ISIL enclaves and came out towards the Al-Hol camp, which is really in the northeast of Syria. Women, children have come out really in a bad shape, needing assistance. And of course, for us, it was almost like having to build a city overnight in Al-Hol camp to help the people who are coming out in a desperate situation. This latest crisis is on top of 6.1 million internally displaced people at this moment in Syria, and a situation which is still, we consider, is still a humanitarian crisis in need of international assistance and support.
Now, I've been looking at the figures which you have released in your most recent report. You know, besides the 11.7 million people who are in need of aid, we have 6.5 million people who are food insecure, 6.2 million who are internally displaced, 2.1 million children in the country that are out of school. Just how much money does the United Nations really need to solve all these problems?
Well, the humanitarian appeal, which actually we are in the process of finalizing, it will be just under $3.5 billion. And this is what we're asking for 2019. The needs are massive, really. When one looks at many of the sectors in terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of basic, clean, simple water, and of course, protection. Syria remains a protection crisis, and many people are really worried about their safety, about issues related to children, protection of children, child recruitment, gender-based violence, freedom of movement, house and land property. There's a lot of issues that Syrians are very worried about as we go into 2019. So funding is essential. Funding and the humanitarian response clearly is not the answer. However, it will help to alleviate the most urgent needs of people who still depend on the international community to assist them.
Will the United Nations be working with the government over in Syria to help rebuild the country, if you will? Because because besides, you know, the different figures that the recent report has listed, the whole country needs to be rebuilt: roads, schools, bridges.
Indeed, the destruction in Syria is quite massive. When one travels around, one sees entire neighborhoods, areas that have really been severely damaged by the war, and of course, this affects people's homes, schools, health facilities, public infrastructure, and so on. As United Nations, our focus is really on the humanitarian response, which is really what is needed at this very moment. And the Secretary General's position is wanting to see progress on the political side before moving further with some reconstruction.
Panos Mumpsis, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today.